ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Event Tech Pull-Up. We are excited to have you today. My name is Tess Vismel from iSocialX, and my partner in crime, as I always call him, is
Keith Johnston with i3 Events, and you let the cat out of the bag. So also I write for Planner Wire occasionally because it's kind of like, I don't know, I don't write that often.
Exactly. So tell us our news for the day, Keith.
So, the biggest news thing that I want to talk about and it's actually not even tech related, but I'm sure there is a tech spin on it somewhere, is yesterday there was a ProPublica report that came out about the cancellation of the Houston Rodeo. Now, all of our listeners might be going, the rodeo, man, but it is a massive event. It's 20 days long. It has 2 million visitors. And this ProPublica report goes all into how the thinking behind the cancellation when they finally had to pull the plug and they were 8 days in.
Wow.
It's funny because I just me being an event person, as I'm reading it, yes, you see the hemming and the hawing and the stupid crap that politicians do and that the people high up do, but I could feel the pain of the people that produce the event. I could the planners and the people who get these school kids that come with their cows or whatever they bring, right? And you had people in transit that were coming. And the actual emotional terror that must have been to cancel something of that magnitude at the last, right in the middle of it, actually. So I think that's my big thing, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. But I think everyone who is involved in events in any way, shape, or form, and I mean it's a 4-minute read. It's not going to take you all day to read it. I think it would make a spectacular case study a year from now. But I do really hope that everyone does go and reads that.
Yeah, definitely. So we have some exciting guests for today. Tell me about them, please?
Well, we've got Kelly Wyatt and we've got Anna Tai, who's got the coolest name in the world. They are going to be talking content marketing with us. And this is a really cool thing. We're actually splitting our talk with them into 2 parts. So it's actually 2 episodes. And the first episode is going to be all about content marketing, the craft, if you will. And the second part will be all about content marketing, the tech.
Exactly. Definitely. So you want me to tell them a little bit about Anna Tai, and then you can tell them a little bit about Kelly?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So Anna Tai Zivia, it excels in building and leading marketing and revenue operations teams that serve high growth SaaS and IT technology orgs. She spent the last decade managing global brand strategies, building revenue pipeline, and matching best-in-class humans with best-in-class tech for brands such as Attendify, which we love, Infusionsoft, Keep, and Logicalls.
Yeah,
that's Anna Tai.
And actually, when they were with Attendify is actually where I actually got to know Kelly and Anna Tai. But Kelly is the founder and creative director of Grace Under Fire Productions, a full-service content marketing firm. And she's actually a graduate of Northwestern's University's Medill School of Journalism. So again, we always find people that are way smarter than me, which is a good thing. And she spent the last 15 years honing her craft as a writer, marketer, and event planner for startups, established firms, and nonprofit organizations. And I know that she is actually, we won't say where, but we know that she is headed off to a kind of a startup-y kind of thing next. But they are actually fantastic people and really, really good at content marketing.
Yes. Well, I'm really excited. I'm sure our listeners and our viewers are very excited to meet the ladies.
Cool. So let's go ahead and bring them in.
All right.
And guys, thank you so much for being here today. I know that we're going to get into, and we're going to talk about content marketing. And in the first block, because this is a 2-parter with these guys because they're so awesome. We are actually going to talk about why you need to content market. And then the second one is second block, we're going to talk about the technology for content marketing. But before we get into all that, how are you guys doing in the whole COVID-19 quarantine day 5,385,200?
And ladies, be real with us. We really want
Right?
you to be real, because we know Planner Wire was real in that last post, so be real.
Being real, this is the most makeup I've had on my face in like a month. So no, I actually, it's an interesting time, I think, for everybody. And you know, I what I like about it, you know, it's kind of keeping me optimistic about this whole experience is, you know, I'm a huge tech nerd. And I've been using Zoom and, you know, WebEx and all these tools my whole career. And I kind of took them for granted. And now I'm watching amazing things happen. My sister-in-law is a teacher, and I was in teaching her how to use Zoom for her classroom. My in-laws were attending church services over, you know, video platforms. And this is all new to them. And I think what is interesting about this experience is we are kind of forcing ourselves, people who have not been, you know, in that digital native space where we use this every day, they're getting out and using technology with different use cases. And I'm really excited about seeing this, because not only is it causing people to innovate, but you've got a whole group of users out there now that companies are going to have to cater to and change their experience. And so I keep myself optimistic with that, and, you know, watching this kind of turn of events happen, you know, but all in all, I think the big thing for me is there's opportunity around the corner right now. And, you know, I've just got to be at that place to go out and seize it. And, you know, that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping my 1 foot, you know, outside the door, as much social distancing as I can there. But, you know, I'm ready to jump into what the future's bringing to us.
And Kelly, how are you holding up?
Yeah, you know, I agree 100% with Anna Tai, and I'll just say it really has opened up my eyes, you know, being a content expert, you know, it really has opened up to my eyes into how content is received by others. So I have gotten through this by really being specific about the channels that I am looking at to receive content. There are some social media channels, or, you know, just other channels across the web that tend to be really negative, not credible, very based in highly charged emotion. And I've really steered away from that and been able to appreciate, especially from a professional level, a lot of the support, advice, and networking that's going on channels like LinkedIn, where people are really, whether they know it or not, engaging in content best practices. They're delivering information that is objective, that's conversational, that's high value, and they're really out there just to help others instead of trying to simply sell themselves or a product or a service. So I've learned a lot from that, and I've taken a lot of heart from others that are out there that are just truly trying to help people who are struggling during this time.
And you make a good point. I didn't realize it, but you're right. I have been avoiding some channels. like you know, every time you come to the fork in the road, I'm always taking right, and I'm never going down some of those forks.
Absolutely.
And I think that's going to be a long-term, you know, and we'll get into this. I don't want to, you know, put the cart before the horse, but that's going to stay with brands that are very strong and are not leveraging this crisis just simply for their own personal gain and really taking advantage of people's panic, but helping them with real solutions and putting the customer challenge first. People are going to remember that when, you know, things, you know, start to get back to normal or the new normal. And, you know, that's part of the reason why establishing a really good, very strategic content program is so important, more important now than ever, I think.
Well, and that'll lead us right into our first question. And I know, Kelly, this one skews a little bit more toward you than Anna Tai, but what is content marketing? Because you know what? I know that, you know, content marketing is something that is been a thing for years, but there are so many organizations that haven't really had to deal with it. But now with this crisis, they have to deal with it. So what would be your definition of content marketing?
Sure, I'll give you a little definition, and then I'll run an example past you that might pertain to an association. So content marketing, by definition, is a strategic effort that puts relevant, actionable, and dependable information into the world to attract what is ideally a very targeted audience. So what it does is it flips traditional marketing practices, which are often hyper-focused on pitching an organization's product or services, and it flips it on its head. And instead, the content strategist leads with addressing the customer challenge and then backs into how specific aspects of the product or service can help solve that challenge. So while more traditional marketing and content marketing have the same goal, which is, boosting the bottom line through increased sales or customer retention or even cost saving initiatives, content marketing takes a little bit of a different route. And you can think of it as more of a marathon and less of a sprint. Really, what you want to focus on in content marketing is the use of clear, concise, and consistent messaging to build a distinct voice for your brand. And then you really leverage that to nurture a relationship with your audience. And if you, like I said, if you do that correctly over time, the brand's going to become seen as a trusted source of information and will be at the top of the list when the prospect is ready to make a purchasing decision, if they're not already. So,
yeah. I was going to, go ahead. Sorry, nope, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say,
give you an example for an association. So say an association is planning a convention for marketers and using traditional, marketing practices, they might just talk at their audience, a very broad audience. They haven't segmented it all. And they're promoting the name of the event, the date, this awesome venue and great location, all of that.
And the early bird. Right.
I'm not saying that's not important, but using a content marketing technique, the association's talking with their audience. So they're leading their promotions with the challenges that, the marketers that might be attending this conference are facing. And then they're tying the value prop of the conference back into each one of those challenges. And ideally, they might segment their audience if they're not everyone's at this level of sophistication, but ideally they might be able to use their database to segment their target audience into specific groups. So the marketing operations people on their, prospect list, they might send them an email that's talking about the conference differently than the event marketers that are on their list. And the date and the time, all that flash information, it's still important. And in many channels like social media where you have limited space, it's, it is the first thing that you're going to get out there. But for your longer format pieces, you're really trying not to just shove your personal brand's agenda down their throat, but instead you're offering them this objective, really valuable content in exchange for their loyalty.
Yeah, and I think, with COVID-19, I think, and I'll ask your guys' opinion on this, but I think it's really important for brands to really start to content market. And I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but has anyone seen Ion Exhibits, what they've been doing lately? They've had to pivot, right? And because they're an exhibit house and they're an exhibit manufacturer, and they've made the pivot to making PPE. Right, because they can make face shields and stuff, and they've been putting this stuff out on social, and I actually think it's probably accidental content marketing, but Ion is not someone who I had thought of in the past because I have an exhibit house, right, or a lot of my clients do, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing their stuff, and every day it's heartwarming and it's cool, and so now when we come out of this and someone says, oh, blah 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 blah, I'm gonna go, oh, here's the person I normally use, but have you checked out these guys?
Yeah.
So Keith, let's stop for a moment and define for our audience, because we have audiences that are not marketers. We have audiences that are not associations. What in the world is a PPE?
Personal protective gear.
Personal protective equipment, yeah.
Yes, but thank you.
No worries. No worries. No worries. I want to make sure that our viewers and our listeners are clear with some of our acronyms.
Yes, and that's actually a good. I actually just got off of a big phone call with a client before this, and we're actually talking about how they're going to have to do social distancing at their event next February, and how we're going to have plastic shields in the exhibit booths and all kinds of stuff. But that is down a rabbit hole we don't need to go down. So, all right. So with COVID-19, why, I guess, would it be important, for an organization that had never really considered content marketing, if they still have any staff left, why is it important for them to dive in now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been following on LinkedIn very established brands talking about content marketing and what to do with their messaging in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. And, questions out there are, do we just keep status quo and keep on chugging along with our content plan? Do we pause everything? And, my answer is, none of the above. The bottom line is, in this world of we're already in a world of 24/7 connectivity where people are just overwhelmed with messaging. And now they're getting this daily onslaught of data and insights, very emotional data insights. And it's enough to make, like we talked about earlier, it's not to make people just turn away and say, I'm not looking at my email, I'm not going to these social media channels, forget it. Not everyone has that luxury, but they're certainly filtering through. So that's why now more than ever, really having a comprehensive content strategy is so important. And really, it's a prime opportunity. People are looking for helpful, credible, targeted information right now. So people are looking for good content. There's a lot of content out there, and a lot of it is not great. And I'm going just straight up, none of the stuff that I'm producing. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, so the important tips there are, look, you gotta read the room, know your audience, understand their distinct challenges. If you haven't done so already, join some of these online industry groups so you can get into these. I'm not saying, go in there and kind of stalk and listen, but you can listen and contribute and better understand their concerns, as well as the language that they're using to talk about this. And then you really want to craft your content with that kind of eagle eye towards offering valuable information. And please, please, please don't leverage, the fear and confusion surrounding this time to sell products or services. You talked about the exhibitor and what they're doing, and it's accidental, but what they ended up doing is they're putting out a helpful product or service that actually initially it's related somewhat to their original service, but not exactly. But they're doing it to help people, and that's what really caught your eye, and I'm sure others. The other thing is, just a couple of other tips on this is be very mindful of tone. I like to lean towards usually always a more conversational style and avoid jargon. You still want to come across, using industry terms that show subject matter expertise, but it's a very emotional real time for people. So you want to be more conversational and not jargony. And then also just be very watchful of your cadence. Think quantity over quality. Just because you can throw something out there in the mix from a content perspective is not a good reason to do it. I mean, at the very least, you risk wasting your time and your message gets completely lost in the noise. And the worst case scenario is that you turn off or even alienate your audience, and that's going to be a problem that stays with your brand long term. I'm sorry, somebody had something there?
Kelly's absolutely right. I think it's an excellent point that she's talking about, that bringing out quality, because right now it's very noisy. It's almost like trying to advertise during Black Friday. There's so much noise out there. You're competing for a lot of real estate, and it's a lot of real estate that, like she said, people don't want to read. And so finding a way to put the gem out there in that market, having share of voice is one thing, having share of voice that makes a difference is another. So those are excellent points, Kelly. I applaud you for having the gusto to come out and just say that. It's not about how many pieces you put out there. It's about putting out the one that really helps somebody.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you all said that.
And that really is that. I mean, that is a really good point, right? Because they're jamming up the channels, right? They're just pushing stuff out right now. And you want to create that one piece that shines, right? And because that's the one everyone's going to go back to, and it's the one that's going to be worth something to somebody a week from now. Mm-hmm. Most of the crap I'm reading today, I don't remember it tomorrow, but again, Ion, their accidental, pivot to PPE. I'm talking about it today, and I've been watching it go on for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
You know, which is spectacular. So for any, you know, again, you know, not necessarily associations, but because a lot of companies and other types of organizations are like this. You know, I think that content marketing has been around for such a long time for us that everyone has forgotten that there are people who are new. And so for the people who are new, you know, what is a good way to get started? You know, if they were going to sit down at a table tomorrow and say, okay, guys, let's try this out, what are the first things they should do?
Can I add a little bit more to that too, Kate? Because I just got off a call just to help you with answering this, ladies. I just got off a call where I was doing one-on-one LinkedIn profile reviews for a company. I'd done the overall about what LinkedIn is about and how necessary it is for them to update their profiles and what the platform will do. But then in the one-on-one, I had to review the company page for LinkedIn as well and talk about content. And these are people, this is a small business, right, that has nothing to do with our events industry, who has no marketer, been doing multi-million-dollar contracts for many, many, many years. So they're well established and have a niche market. And this, what we're talking about, goes to me across the board, and even more so now for those who never got into it, to the new normal, and those who think they have it. To me, they're still back to the I've never started.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of getting a strategy started, I would give the same advice to someone who is new to the game or someone who's a seasoned professional. There are steps, you know, a kind of a multi-step system that any content strategist worth their salt is going to take. So, I mean, like, I'm a hit the ground running type of person, but first of all, you got to be ready to do a lot of listening and a lot of learning from you know, what's currently out there and from other organizers and influencers within your own organization and within the industry. So the first thing I suggest is start an audit of the content that currently exists. Go through all of your active channels, from social media to blog posts, your videos, your webinars, whole shebang, and just create a simple spreadsheet. Or I'm sure Anatai could, you know, tell you 6 platforms off the top of her head that would take the whole process. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the spreadsheet, and you want to drop, you know, all this content into one of 3 columns or categories. Stuff you want to keep, it's fine as it is. You know, pieces that you want to convert, where they're, you know, the nuts and the bolts are there, but maybe the tone is off, stats are off, there's something wrong with it, but it's fixable. And then pieces you just want to kill because they're so outmoded that it's going to do more harm to your brand than good and can't be easily fixed. If it's a valuable topic, you can always just start, you know, anew. So that's if you actually, you know, have most organizations have some content. People think, I don't have anything. You do. You probably do. But if you don't, that's okay, because you can move on to the next step, which is you want to sit down with key stakeholders from across your organization and learn what's worked in the past and what hasn't, and what these stakeholders think, you know, you need to take content to the next level that's going to help their initiatives within their departments. I typically like to involve someone from sales, someone from product, and someone from success. And you know, an executive sponsor is often fine to have on there and helpful as well. I do want to note that when you're kind of forming a quasi content advisory board here, and it's really just as a guidepost to help you get buy-in and generate ideas for your content strategy. And these are people that you can check in with on a quarterly basis or even on a monthly basis if you want. But it doesn't mean that you're using them to really sanity check your strategy and to mine for ideas. It doesn't mean that you're doing every messaging goes past this group and that you're doing everything, all your, you know, content by consensus, because that's not usually going to work. But, you know, what's important is that creating content in a vacuum, especially for a smaller organization or marketing team, is really hard. It's hard to scale. It's hard to get enough ideas. So you really want to work with others within the organization to contribute ideas and or produce if they want to. So that's your second step. Your third step is create a 30, 60, 90, 1 year plan how you like to see your content strategy scale. And remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is your content going to be, because you're just going to, usually you don't have the human resources or the budget or both. And so you're going to have to figure out what channels are most important. When I say channels, I mean different way distribution methods that your content's going out, like your blog, emails, social media, video. There's so many these days. And the really big brands are doing these, what they're called omni-channel strategies, where all their content is being parsed out across multiple channels. Smaller organizations or brands with smaller departments really need to focus on some select channels that have the most bang for their buck. And so, this might mean that you are only going to ramp up Twitter and LinkedIn and forget about, Facebook and Instagram, because you just can't handle, refacing and posting to all of those. But you pick the ones that are most worth it to you. And then the next step, once you've got, your list of what you want to do, is you start creating a content calendar. And that's going to show, there's a lot of tools out there that are actually very cost effective that you can use to schedule exactly what types of content's being distributed when, via what channels. And the really good pieces will let you actually tag content contributors, so you can use as a project management tool to make sure everyone's staying up to date and making deadlines to contribute content. And this really helps you kind of visualize your strategy overall, see what content holes you have during certain periods, and what maybe log jams you have in certain areas. So that's helpful as well. And then I just want to tie in that as you are doing this, you really want to, the long-term goal, and it takes a long time to get there and it's tricky, is to establish a consistent tone of voice for your brand. That's a big part of a content strategy. Take some time. A lot of times there's stops and starts where it's like, that sounded good, but not so okay. We're gonna rework that a little bit. But once you get the gist of it, what you really want to do is to start taking some notes about rules that you've applied to how you talk about yourself. In the long term, you can use this as like copy guidelines or brand guidelines, and you can, get it out there to your entire organization and to any freelancers you end up using for content. Another thing that helps is you should have at least one content vetter on your team. So this is someone that's reviewing everything, that if you have multiple contributors internally or even externally, that's reviewing everything that comes through and making sure it does have that consistent tone of voice. This doesn't mean that you turn, if you have influencers or thought leaders that are, submitting pieces, that everyone has to sound exactly the same and we're all robots or anything like that. But for your brand-centric pieces, it really helps people know, what to expect. So, and then you just continue to scale from there. So it seems like a lot, but it really is achievable and scalable for people with all different size teams and budgets.
Yeah, and I'll throw in a couple of things before we wrap up this one segment, which is, people don't realize with the content calendar, it's really important, because especially if you're on a small team, you will find yourself getting into a rut. And you will start to talk about the same things. And these are typically the things that you're really good at. Like, so for example, for a while, I noticed a long time ago, I was writing about the same subject all the time, only because it was easy for me. So I could crank out tons of great content on that one subject. So it kind of avoids that. And then for the other point, I totally forgot what it was. So there you go.
I think it's on that, on generating ideas, besides looking to internal and external experts and influencers, I like to, have it up there. What's our audience's key challenges? What are they? And then what's our value prop for our product or service? Okay, how do these all match up in a bunch of different ways? Doing that, you can generate so many ideas, and it also helps you vet the ideas that are coming in. Someone comes to you and you say, okay, wait a second, is that piece of content going to address one of our customer challenges? Yes. Okay, but can we actually solve that customer challenge via our product or service? That's going to help you kind of, sort through a lot of the content ideas that come in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it creates a great map for you. I also loved a point you made, Kelly, that you were talking, about that that consistent brand voice. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of organizations. But it's not just the content up at the top of the funnel, which is where a lot of people put their marbles. I think the big piece is, you were talking about taking this out into sales and taking this out into success. And that is absolutely key, especially in times like right now. You're in the middle of COVID-19. You're not just talking to buyers, you're talking to customers, you're talking to future new hires, you're talking to partners. It's a consistent voice. And I think the most important thing to remember is it's about a brand experience. You don't have a relationship with a website or a blog that you read, or a relationship with Joe, the sales guy, or, Courtney, the BDR. You have a relationship with that brand, that logo. And so it's important for that brand and that logo to have that consistent voice all the way through that whole experience. So that's absolutely gold. And it's really hard to achieve that. And I think the menu that you laid out there of having the right individuals involved in some of this content curation and vetting is absolutely key to make that achievable. It puts everybody kind of on that mark.
Cool. And on that note, we're going to take a break with these guys, because they're actually coming back in the next episode, where we're actually going to tell you all about the tech that can help you get started with your content marketing.
Yeah,
Tess,
tech.
you're just awesome.
Thank you. You are too.
Love it.
You make me awesome. All right, audience, thank you so much for being with us today on the Event Tech Pull-Up. Please remember to share with your tribe, eventtechpullup.com. That's eventtechpullup.com. Our anchor hashtag is Event Tech Pull-Up, and our secondary hashtag is Pull Up with Us. Again, I am Tess from iSocialX, and this is
Keith with i3 Events.
We're happy to have you. Thank you. Have a great day.